One rich bully saw a black girl standing beside a luxury car and instantly decided she must have stolen it. At Westbridge Academy, that accusation spread faster than the truth. Within minutes, students were filming, laughing, and treating her like a criminal. A police officer put his hands on her. School administrators pressured her to sign a statement, and not a single person stopped to ask the most important question: what if she was telling the truth? But the bullies had no idea they were playing a very dangerous game. Because the quiet girl they humiliated wasn't alone, and the woman on her way to the school wasn't just an angry parent. Stay until the end. Because when her mother's true identity is revealed, everything changes. And the people who thought they were untouchable are left wishing they had never opened their mouths. The black sedan should have been nothing more than a car parked in front of Westbridge Academy. But the moment Ariana Reed stepped out of it, the morning air changed. The private school's front gate was packed with students arriving in pressed uniforms, parents pulling away in luxury SUVs, and teachers pretending not to notice the small social battles happening around them. Ariana kept her head down, one hand holding the strap of her backpack, and the other reaching back into the open car door for a folder her mother had forgotten on the passenger seat. She did not look rich. She did not act important. Her white blouse was simple. Her jeans were plain, and her sneakers had a small scuff near the toe. To her, the car was just her family's car. To Carter Blake, it was an opportunity. Carter stood near the VIP parking lane with Mason, Tyler, and Brooke, laughing too loudly like the entire school belonged to him. His father's name was on the new library wing. His family sponsored half the school's events. And Carter had learned early that money could make teachers look away. When he saw Ariana beside the glossy black sedan, his smile sharpened. "No way," he said, loud enough for his friends to hear. "That girl is not getting out of that car." Mason laughed first. Tyler followed. Brooke lifted her phone, sensing entertainment before anyone else did. Ariana closed the car door and started toward the building. But Carter stepped into her path with a grin that was already becoming a threat. "Hey," Carter called out, pointing at the sedan behind her. "What are you doing with that car?" Ariana stopped. A few students turned their heads. She looked at him calmly and said, "I'm getting something from my car." Carter tilted his head like she had just told the funniest joke of the morning. "Your car," he repeated. "You expect anyone here to believe that?" The words landed harder than they should have, because everyone understood what he meant, even if he did not say it directly. Ariana's face tightened, but she refused to give him the reaction he wanted. "I don't need you to believe anything," she said. "Move." That only made him louder. Carter pulled out his phone and began recording, holding it at an angle that captured Ariana, the expensive sedan, and the growing crowd behind them. "Westbridge, look at this," he said into the camera. New girl shows up and suddenly thinks she owns a VIP car. Brooke giggled and started recording too. Mason walked closer to the sedan, pretending to inspect the handle. Tyler shook his head dramatically. "That's brave," he said. "Stealing in broad daylight." Ariana took a slow breath. She knew what they were doing. They were not confused. They were building a scene. They wanted her embarrassed, angry, loud, anything that would make their video look true. So she kept her voice steady. "That car belongs to my family. I have the key." For 1 second, Carter's grin faded. Ariana reached into her pocket and pulled out the key fob. Black and silver, the tiny logo catching the sunlight. Several students leaned in. The proof was right there in her hand. Carter saw it too, and that was why he moved so fast. Before Ariana could press the unlock button, he snatched the key from her fingers. Ariana stepped forward immediately. "Give it back." Carter lifted it above his shoulder and tossed it to Mason, who caught it with a laugh. The crowd reacted with a mix of gasps and nervous excitement, the kind of sound people make when they know something is wrong but want to see how far it will go. Ariana's calm cracked just enough for Carter to enjoy it. Relax. He said, if it's really yours, why are you so scared? Ariana looked from Carter to Mason. Because you just stole my key. Carter turned toward his phone, voice rising for the camera. Did everyone hear that? She brings out some random key and now she's accusing me. Classic. Brooke added, maybe it's a fake key. Tyler pointed at Ariana and said, that's the most pathetic car thief I've ever seen. Laughter spread through the students standing nearby. Ariana's hands curled into fists at her sides. Not because she wanted to fight, but because every instinct told her this was turning dangerous. She had walked into school hoping to stay invisible. Now she was the center of a public trial built on lies. Carter took a step closer, lowering his voice just enough that only Ariana could hear the poison in it. You picked the wrong school to pretend you belong here. Then he turned back to the crowd, raising his phone higher. Everybody look closely. He announced, this is how a thief gets caught at Westbridge. Ariana stared at the lens pointed at her face. Behind Carter, Mason still had her key. Brooke was recording from another angle. Tyler was laughing like this was a game. Around them, students whispered, judged, and waited for the next humiliation. Ariana wanted to shout the truth, but she knew the truth sounded weak when the liar controlled the camera. She looked past them toward the school entrance, hoping one adult would step in and ask the right question. No one did. The black sedan gleamed behind her in the morning sun. Silent proof that somehow made her look more guilty in their eyes. Ariana did not know it yet. But in just a few minutes, Carter's lie would bring security, the police, the principal, and a secret about her mother that Westbridge Academy was not ready to face. The crowd grew faster than Ariana expected. One moment, there were only a few students pretending not to watch. The next, half the parking lane seemed to have stopped moving. Backpacks hung from shoulders. Phones came out. Whispering turned into murmuring. And murmuring turned into judgment before anyone had asked a single real question. Carter Blake noticed it immediately. He knew how crowds worked. He knew if he said something loudly enough, confidently enough, and cruelly enough, people would start believing it before Ariana could defend herself. So he raised his voice and pointed at her like he had just uncovered a crime. She was trying to open a luxury car with a stolen key. He shouted, I caught her right here. Ariana's eyes flashed toward Mason, who still had the key fob in his hand. That is my key, she said, forcing each word through her teeth. He took it from me. Mason laughed and walked toward the sedan like he was an expert, examining evidence. He bent near the door handle, squinting dramatically. Look scratched to me, he said. Maybe she was trying to force it. There was no scratch. There was nothing wrong with the car. But Tyler had already pulled out his phone and was calling campus security, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. Yeah, we need someone at the front lot. A girl got caught messing with a car that isn't hers. Brooke moved around Ariana with her phone held high, live streaming from an angle that made Ariana look cornered and nervous. This is insane, Brooke whispered to her viewers, though she made sure Ariana could hear it. New girl really thought she could steal from Westbridge and walk away. Ariana turned sharply. Stop recording me. Brooke only smiled. Why? If you didn't do anything, why are you scared? That sentence lit up the crowd. A few students nodded as if fear itself were proof. Ariana felt the trap tightening around her. Carter had the attention. Brooke had the video. Mason had the key. Tyler had already called security. And Ariana had nothing but the truth, which sounded smaller every second under the noise of their performance. She stepped toward Carter and held out her hand. Give me back the key. Carter looked down at her hand. Then back at the camera. Thieves always say it belongs to them. He said, that's literally the first thing they do. Laughter moved through the crowd like a wave. Ariana's jaw tightened. She wanted to grab the key herself, but she knew the moment she touched Carter or Mason, Brooke's video would become exactly what they wanted, an angry black girl lunging at innocent students. So she stood still, trapped by her own self-control. Then Jasmine Cole pushed through the circle. She was one of the only students who had spoken kindly to Ariana since her transfer. And now her face was pale with disbelief. "Wait," Jasmine said, turning toward the crowd. "None of you saw what happened. Carter took the key from her." Carter's smile vanished for half a second. Then he turned that same smile on Jasmine. "Careful," he said. "You sure you want to defend someone caught stealing?" Jasmine swallowed, but she did not step back. "She wasn't stealing." "You're lying." The crowd went quiet, not because they believed Jasmine, but because they wanted to see what Carter would do to her. He leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound personal, but loud enough for the front row to hear. "Keep talking and people might start wondering why you're helping her. Maybe you were part of it." Jasmine froze. Ariana looked at her and shook her head slightly, a silent warning not to get dragged into Carter's trap. But Jasmine's eyes stayed on the key in Mason's hand. "Just give it back," she said. "That proves everything." Before Mason could answer, Mr. Nolan, the school security guard, came jogging toward them with a radio clipped to his belt. He was older, broad-shouldered, and already irritated before he understood anything. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Carter immediately stepped forward. Calm now. Almost respectful. "Sir, we caught her trying to steal a parent's car." Ariana spoke at the same time. "That is not true. They took my key." Nolan looked from Ariana to Carter, then to the black sedan. His expression changed when he recognized Carter. Everyone at Westbridge knew the Blake family. Everyone knew Carter's father had paid for the new media center, the sports complex renovation, and half the school's charity gala. Nolan did not ask Mason to show the key. He did not ask Ariana for her name. He did not check the car registration. He simply raised a hand toward Ariana and said, "Step away from the vehicle." Ariana stared at him. "It's my family's car." Nolan's voice hardened. "Step away." Carter's lips curled into a quiet smile. Ariana slowly took 2 steps back, her heart pounding harder now. "Let me call my mother," she said. "She can confirm everything." Carter cut in instantly. "Of course she wants to call someone. She's stalling." Nolan reached for his radio. That was the moment Ariana understood the worst part of the lie. The key was real, but she no longer had it. Carter's group had taken the one thing that proved she belonged with that car, then turned the absence of it into proof that she did not. Nolan lifted the radio to his mouth and requested an officer at the front lot. The crowd reacted with a low, hungry murmur. Brooke whispered to her live stream. Security just called it in. Jasmine looked horrified. Ariana stood near the sedan, close enough to see her own reflection in its dark paint, but far enough that everyone now treated her like an intruder. Carter leaned toward her, his voice soft and poisonous. "You picked the wrong car to pretend you were rich." In the distance, a siren began to rise beyond the school gates. Ariana looked toward the sound. And for the first time that morning, she realized this was no longer just bullying. It was becoming an official accusation. The police car rolled through the front gate slowly, its lights flashing against the black sedan like the ending had already been decided. The crowd shifted back, not out of respect, but out of excitement. Phones lifted higher. Whispers became sharper. Ariana Reed stood near the vehicle that belonged to her family. But in that moment, every eye around her treated her like someone caught beside stolen property. Officer Daniel Harkins stepped out of the patrol car with a heavy expression and one hand resting near his belt. Before Ariana could say a word, Carter Blake walked toward him with the confidence of someone greeting an old family friend. "Officer Harkins," Carter said, offering his hand. "I'm sorry you had to come out here." Harkins shook his hand. That single handshake told Ariana everything. Carter was not explaining himself to the police. He was being welcomed by them. Mr. Nolan moved closer and began speaking quietly. But Carter cut in smoothly, shaping the story before Ariana could touch it. We caught her trying to open that sedan, Carter said, pointing at Ariana. When we confronted her, she got nervous and started claiming the car was hers. Then she pulled out some key and acted like that proved something. Brooke kept recording. Mason stood behind Carter, eyes flicking toward the key fob hidden in his palm. Tyler shook his head like he was disappointed in Ariana's choices. Ariana stepped forward. That's not what happened, she said. He took my key out of my hand. Ask anyone who saw it. Officer Harkins barely looked at her. Miss, stay where you are. Jasmine pushed through the edge of the crowd, her voice shaking but clear. She's telling the truth. Carter grabbed the key from her. Carter turned slowly, giving Jasmine a warning look. She's just confused, he said. People panicked when they saw Ariana trying the door. Ariana felt heat rise in her chest. Every lie was delivered calmly. Every truth she spoke sounded desperate because nobody allowed her to finish a sentence. She lifted her chin and said, "Check the registration. Call my mother. Look at the cameras." Harkin's face hardened as if her requests were disrespect. "We'll get to that," he said. "Right now. I need you to cooperate." Then he pointed toward the sedan. "Turn around and place your hands on the vehicle." A low gasp rolled through the students. Ariana stared at him. For what Harkin stepped closer. "For my safety and yours." Brooke whispered into her live stream. "Oh my God. She's being detained." Carter's mouth curved, but he quickly forced it into a concerned expression. Pretending to be the responsible student who had only tried to help, Ariana slowly turned and placed both hands on the hood of the black sedan. The metal felt cold under her palms. It was absurd. Painfully absurd. This was the same car she had ridden in that morning. The same car where her mother had left a legal folder on the passenger seat. The same car that still smelled faintly of leather and coffee. Now she was being made to stand against it like it belonged to someone else. The crowd watched in silence, hungry for the next piece of humiliation. Jasmine shouted again. "He has the key. Carter has it. That was when Mason moved." Ariana saw him from the corner of her eye. He slipped the key fob into Carter's jacket pocket so quickly that most people missed it. But Ariana did not. "He just gave it to Carter," she said. Turning her head, Harkins grabbed her shoulder lightly but firmly. Face forward. Carter looked down at his pocket with theatrical surprise, then reached inside and pulled out the key fob. "Wait," he said, holding it up. "I just found this. It must have been on the ground." Mason nodded immediately. "Yeah. Near her foot," Tyler added. "She probably dropped it when she got caught." Ariana almost laughed because the lie was so obvious. So cheap. And somehow still working. "That is my key," she said. "You know it is." Officer Harkins took the key from Carter and turned it over in his hand as if he had just discovered important evidence. "So you admit this is the key you were using?" he asked Ariana. She looked at him, stunned. "I admit it is my family's key. He stole it from me." Carter raised both hands. "Officer, I don't want to cause trouble. I just don't think someone should get away with taking a parent's car." The way he said it made him sound mature, almost noble. Ariana could hear several students whispering that Carter was doing the right thing. Her stomach tightened. She asked again. Slower this time. "Please check the car registration. My mother's name will be connected to it." Harkins slipped the key into his evidence pouch. "We'll handle that after we secure the situation." "Secure what?" Ariana asked. "I'm standing beside my own car." Harkins leaned closer, lowering his voice but not enough to hide the warning. "Miss Reed, you need to understand how serious this can become if you keep resisting." Ariana's fingers pressed against the hood. She was not resisting. She was explaining, but the more she explained, the guiltier they made her look. Carter stepped just close enough for Ariana to hear him over the murmuring crowd. Maybe next time? Pick something cheaper. Jasmine's eyes filled with anger. But Nolan blocked her from coming any closer. Brooke zoomed in on Ariana's face. Catching the exact moment, frustration almost broke through her calm. Officer Harkins straightened and spoke in a cold, official tone. You have the right to remain silent if this situation is more serious than you're telling us. The words struck harder than the crowd's laughter. They were no longer treating this like a school misunderstanding. They were giving Carter's lie the weight of law. Ariana stared at the sedan's reflection and saw Carter standing behind her, smiling, like he had already won. In the distance, the school doors opened, and more adults began walking toward the parking lot. Ariana understood then that this trap had layers. Carter had stolen her key, twisted it into evidence, and handed the police a story they wanted to believe. And now that story was about to enter the school itself. Ariana knew she had only one chance left to stop the lie before it became permanent. Her key was gone. Carter had turned it into evidence. Officer Harkins had already decided she was suspicious. Brooke's phone was still pointed at her face, waiting for one bad reaction. One raised voice. One tear. One mistake. So Ariana forced herself to breathe and slowly moved one hand toward her pocket. I need to call my mother, she said. Harkins stepped closer at once. Keep your hands where I can see them. Ariana Froze, my phone is in my pocket. I'm allowed to call my parent, not until we understand what happened here. Harkins replied. The words made no sense. Calling her mother was exactly how they could understand it. Ariana tried anyway, carefully pulling the phone halfway out. Harkins grabbed her wrist too hard, and the phone slipped from her fingers. It hit the pavement with a sharp crack that made several students gasp. For one tiny second, everyone looked down. That was all Carter needed. He moved like he was only shifting his foot, then kicked the phone under the sedan. It skidded into the shadow beneath the car and disappeared behind the front tire. Ariana saw it clearly. He kicked my phone, she said immediately. Carter widened his eyes. What, I didn't touch anything? Brooke turned her camera toward the ground, but only after the phone was already hidden. She's making stuff up now, Brooke said, loud enough for her live stream. Jasmine pointed under the car. It went under there. I saw it. Harkins did not bend down to check. Nolan did not check either. Carter lifted both hands again. Playing innocent. Officer, this is exactly what I mean. First she says it's her car, then her key. Now I'm kicking her phone. She's just trying to make everyone look bad. Ariana stared at the space beneath the sedan where her phone had vanished. Her mother's number was locked behind that cracked screen. Her proof, her contacts, her only direct line out of this circle of accusation had been taken from her with one casual movement of Carter's shoe. The crowd began whispering again. Not about the phone, but about how desperate Ariana sounded. The truth was happening right in front of them. And somehow Carter still controlled what they believed. Brooke was already editing the live stream clip. She stepped back from the crowd, her thumbs moving quickly across the screen. Ariana watched her cut away the beginning. The part where Carter had confronted her. The part where Jasmine had tried to speak. The part where anyone might have asked who took the key first. Brooke kept only the ugly middle Ariana with her hands on the car. Harkins beside her. Carter holding the key like a responsible witness. And the crowd staring as if a thief had been exposed. Then Brooke typed the caption with a smile. New girl caught stealing luxury car. She posted it to the school's private social feed and sent it into 3 group chats before anyone could stop her. Within minutes, phones buzzed all across Westbridge Academy. Students in hallways stopped walking. Students in classrooms leaned over their desks. Even people who had not been near the parking lot now had an opinion. Comments started appearing under the video like small knives. I knew something was off about her. Who does she think she is? Luxury cars aren't for people like that. She really tried it at Westbridge. Ariana did not see the comments yet, but she saw the reaction spreading across the faces around her. The lie had left the parking lot. It was moving faster than she could chase it. The front doors of the school opened, and Vice Principal Grant Vale strode out with 2 staff members behind him. He was a tall man with a polished suit, a tight jaw, and the cold urgency of someone who cared more about appearance than justice. He did not ask Ariana if she was okay. He did not ask why Carter had the key. He looked at the phones, the crowd, the police car, and the black sedan. Then his face hardened with embarrassment. "Enough," he said. "This is becoming a spectacle." Ariana turned toward him quickly. "Sir, my phone is under the car. I need to call my mother. They took my key." And he kicked my phone under there. Vale glanced toward Carter, then toward Officer Harkins, and made his decision without touching a single fact. "You'll have a chance to explain inside." "No," Ariana said, her voice sharper now. "I need to call her now." Vale stepped closer, lowering his tone into something that sounded calm, only because it was cruel. "If you are innocent, Miss Reed, then you will have the opportunity to explain that properly. But right now, you are creating a scene in front of the entire school." Creating a scene? Ariana almost repeated the phrase out loud. Carter had accused her. Brooke had filmed her. Harkins had restrained her. Someone had stolen her key, kicked away her phone, and posted a fake video. But somehow she was the one creating a scene. Jasmine tried to step forward again. "Mr. Val, please. She's telling the truth." Vale raised one hand. "Jasmine, return to class." Jasmine did not move. Carter smiled faintly behind the vice principal's shoulder. Brooke kept filming, capturing Ariana being escorted away from her own car, making the false story look more official. With every second, Harkins guided Ariana toward the building. Nolan stood between Jasmine and the sedan. No one reached for the phone under the car. No one returned the key. As Ariana passed Carter, she turned her head just enough to look at him. He held her gaze, then slowly placed his shoe near the front tire and pressed down on something beneath the car. A faint crunch reached her ears. He smiled. Ariana's stomach dropped. Without her phone, without her key, and without a single adult willing to hear her, she was led into Westbridge Academy like a criminal walking into her own trial. Principal Marjorie Vance's office looked too clean for what was happening inside it. The polished desk, framed awards, gold-lettered certificates, and perfect shelves all seemed designed to say one thing: Westbridge Academy did not make mistakes. Ariana Reed sat in the chair across from the principal, not because she had been invited to explain herself, but because she had been placed there like a problem, waiting to be managed. Vice Principal Grant Vale stood near the window with his arms folded. Officer Harkins remained by the door, close enough to remind everyone that this was no longer just a school issue. Carter Blake sat in the second chair as if he belonged there, relaxed, one ankle resting over his knee, wearing the fake concern of someone who had practiced looking innocent. Outside the office, Jasmine Cole stood behind the glass panel, blocked by a staff member from entering. Ariana could see her mouth moving, trying to speak up, but no one inside was listening. Principal Vance folded her hands on the desk and looked at Ariana with disappointment already written across her face. "Miss Reed," she said, "this situation has created a serious disruption to our school community." Ariana stared at her. "I didn't create it." Principal Vance's expression tightened. "You were found near a vehicle that raised concerns." "It is my family's vehicle," Ariana said. "Carter took my key. Brooke posted a fake video. My phone is still under the car." Carter sighed softly, as if Ariana's words hurt him. "I really don't want this to get worse for her," he said, "but she keeps blaming everyone else." Ariana turned toward him. "You stole my key." Carter lifted both hands. I found it on the ground. Officer Harkins added, "That is what was observed at the scene." Ariana looked at him in disbelief. "You observed nothing. You arrived after he took it." For the first time, Principal Vance's voice sharpened. "Enough. We are not here to argue." Ariana leaned forward, then checked the camera at the front gate. A silence passed through the room. It was short, but Ariana caught it. Vale glanced at Vance. Carter looked down at his shoe. Principal Vance cleared her throat. "Unfortunately, the front gate camera was under maintenance this morning." Ariana's heart sank, but her voice stayed steady. "Of course it was." Principal Vance ignored the edge in Ariana's tone and opened a folder on her desk. "We are trying to resolve this internally before it becomes more damaging." Ariana looked at the folder. Damaging to who Vale stepped in? To the school. Miss Reed. To everyone involved. I am the one being accused of stealing. Ariana said, "I am the one whose face is online." Principal Vance slid a sheet of paper across the desk. "Which is why cooperation is important." Ariana did not touch it at first. She read the title, Student Incident Statement. Beneath it, several lines had already been typed. Her eyes moved down the page, and the room seemed to grow colder with every word. The statement said she had approached the vehicle without proper authorization. It said she understood. Her actions had caused reasonable concern. Then she reached the line that made her fingers go still. "I understand my behavior may be interpreted as an attempt to unlawfully gain access to private property." Ariana looked up slowly. "This is not a statement. This is a confession." Principal Vance's face remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "It is a way to acknowledge responsibility without escalating the matter." Carter leaned forward, speaking gently, almost kindly. "Ariana, just sign it. Honestly, this could be over today. Maybe they'll only suspend you for a few days." Ariana laughed once. Not because anything was funny, but because the cruelty was dressed so neatly as mercy. "You steal my key. Call me a thief. Record me. Destroy my phone. And now you want me to sign your lie." Carter's face flickered. Officer Harkins shifted near the door. "Miss Reed, refusal to cooperate can complicate things. If necessary, we can continue this process at the station." Jasmine knocked on the glass outside. "Let me in. I saw what happened." Vale snapped toward the door. "Keep her out." Ariana watched Jasmine being moved back, then looked again at the paper. Now she understood. This was not confusion. This was not a misunderstanding moving too fast. The school was trying to protect itself. Officer Harkins was trying to protect his decision. Carter was trying to protect his lie. And they all needed Ariana's signature to make their story clean. Ariana picked up the paper. Carter's smile returned, small and satisfied. Principal Vance uncapped a pen and placed it beside the form. "This is the mature choice," she said. Ariana looked at the pen, then at the sentence that tried to turn her into a criminal. Slowly, she tore the paper once down the middle. The sound cut through the office like a slap. Carter's smile disappeared. Vale stepped forward. Harkins straightened. Principal Vance rose from her chair, her voice low with anger. "Miss Reed, I strongly suggest you think carefully about what you are doing." Ariana placed the torn pieces back on the desk and looked directly into the principal's eyes. "I will not sign a lie just to make all of you feel better." For the first time since she entered the office, nobody spoke. The silence was heavy, shocked, and dangerous. Ariana had refused to save their reputations. And that meant the powerful people in the room now had only one goal left: break her before the truth could reach anyone outside that door. Jasmine Cole knew she had only a few minutes before the adults inside Principal Vance's office turned Ariana's silence into guilt. She stood outside the glass door, watching Ariana sit alone, under the weight of 3 powerful people and 1 spoiled liar. No one in that room wanted the truth. They wanted a clean story. They wanted a signature. They wanted the new black girl to become the problem so Westbridge Academy could remain perfect. Jasmine backed away from the office door and hurried down the hall, scanning the faces of students still whispering over Brooke's edited video. Then she saw Olivia Hart near the trophy case, clutching her phone with both hands, her face pale, like she had witnessed a crime and wished she had not. Jasmine knew that look. Olivia, she whispered, stepping in front of her. You saw it, didn't you? Olivia's eyes immediately filled with fear. I don't want to get involved. You already are. Jasmine said, if you recorded what happened, Ariana needs it now. Olivia looked toward the principal's office, then back at her phone. Carter will destroy me. He did it to Mia last semester. He posted a rumor, and everyone believed him. She transferred 2 weeks later. Jasmine lowered her voice. And if you stay quiet, he'll do it to Ariana today. Inside the office, the pressure was getting worse. Principal Vance had just finished picking up the torn pieces of the statement when her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her entire posture changed. The irritation in her face disappeared, replaced by careful politeness. Mr. Blake, she said, stepping slightly away from the desk. Carter's eyes flicked up. Ariana noticed. So did Grant Vale. Vance listened in silence for a moment, then said, yes, we are handling it. Richard Blake's voice was loud enough that Ariana could hear pieces of it through the phone. The video was spreading. His son's name was being mentioned. The school needed to control the situation before parents started asking questions. And under no circumstances, he said, should Carter be treated like he had done anything wrong? Principal Vance's voice softened. Of course. We understand the importance of your family's relationship with Westbridge. Ariana stared at her. There it was. Not justice. Not procedure. A relationship. A donation. A new library wing. Vance ended the call and turned back with a colder decision in her eyes. Miss Reed, she said, given your refusal to cooperate, we may have to place you on temporary suspension pending further review. Ariana sat straighter. For being accused, Grant Vale answered before the principal could. For suspicious behavior involving private property and for escalating a public disturbance. Ariana looked at him in disbelief. You still haven't called my mother. Vale gave a small, insulting smile. You keep mentioning your mother as if her arrival will magically change the facts. Ariana's expression did not break. She will come. Carter gave a quiet laugh. What is she gonna do, march in here and scare everybody? Ariana turned her eyes toward him, calm now in a way that made the room feel smaller. No, she said. She won't need to scare anyone. For the first time, Carter looked slightly unsure. But the moment passed, he leaned back again, protected by his father's phone call, by the principal's fear, and by a school that had been trained to excuse him. In the hallway, Olivia finally unlocked her phone. Her hands trembled as she opened the video. Jasmine leaned close, and both girls watched the truth replay in full. Ariana holding the key, Carter snatching it, Mason laughing, Brooke changing angles, Carter shouting the accusation, and the crowd turning. Jasmine's breath caught. Send it to me, she said. Olivia hesitated only 1 second before tapping share. But before the file could finish uploading, a shadow fell over the screen. Carter had slipped out of the office quietly, pretending to need water. And now he stood behind them with a smile that did not reach his eyes. What are you two doing? Olivia froze. Jasmine tried to step in front of the phone, but Carter was faster. He grabbed Olivia's wrist and snatched the device from her hand. Give it back, Olivia whispered. Carter looked at the screen. The video was still open. His face changed. For one brief second, all his confidence vanished. He saw himself clearly not as the hero of his fake story, but as the liar who started everything. Then the fear turned into anger. Carter backed away, holding Olivia's phone above her reach. "You recorded me." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Carter, just give it back." Jasmine stepped toward him. "That video proves Ariana didn't steal anything." Carter's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "That video proves you two are trying to ruin my life." He began tapping through Olivia's phone, trying to find the delete option. Olivia panicked. "Don't, please." Carter leaned closer. "Listen carefully. If either of you says one word, I'll make sure everyone knows what happened with your scholarship interview. Olivia, I'll make it look like you cheated. And people will believe me. Because they always do." Jasmine's face hardened, but she could not move without risking the phone. Carter looked back at the video one more time, his jaw tight. "This," he said, staring at the proof that could save Ariana, "cannot exist." As his thumb moved toward delete, none of them noticed the black SUV turning through the front gate of Westbridge Academy. Inside it sat a woman whose name could silence every powerful person in that building. The black SUV entered Westbridge Academy without speeding, but every guard at the front gate seemed to notice it at once. It moved past the rows of parent vehicles, past the students still whispering over Brooke's edited video, and stopped near the main entrance with a quiet authority that made people look twice. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out in a dark, tailored suit. Her posture straight, her expression controlled, her eyes already searching the campus, like she had been given only one fact that mattered. Her daughter was inside, and no one had let her call home. She did not rush. She did not shout. She did not need to. Something about her presence made Mr. Nolan, the same security guard who had barked orders at Ariana, stand a little straighter. "Mom, can I help you?" he asked, suddenly polite. The woman looked at him once. "Where is Ariana Reed?" Her voice was calm, but it carried the kind of pressure that made excuses feel dangerous. Nolan hesitated. "There was an incident, and that was not my question." She said, "Where is my daughter?" By then, Officer Harkins had stepped into the hallway near the front doors. When he saw her through the glass, his face tightened with recognition. He could not place fast enough. He had seen that woman before. Not in a school office. Not in a parking lot. On a stage, at a legal conference 2 years earlier. Speaking to officers, judges, and prosecutors about civil rights, accountability, and the cost of assuming guilt before evidence. He remembered the room going silent when she spoke. He remembered the applause, but he did not remember her name quickly enough to save himself from the mistake he had already made. She walked past him before he could speak. "Officer," she said, not as a greeting, but as a warning that she had noticed the badge. "My daughter?" Harkins cleared his throat. "Mom, we're still sorting out the facts." She stopped and turned slightly. "Then you should have started by allowing her to contact her parent." Harkins had no answer. At the far end of the hall, Jasmine Cole saw the woman and instantly understood that this was the person Ariana had been waiting for. Olivia Hart stood beside Jasmine, clutching her phone with trembling hands after Carter's attempt to delete the video. Carter, still holding himself like the world belonged to him, looked toward the woman and smirked. He had no idea who she was. Principal Marjorie Vance came out of her office wearing the careful smile of someone who had survived angry parents before. "Mrs. Reed, I assume," she said. "I'm Principal Vance. I understand emotions are high, but this is only a school matter at the moment." The woman's eyes moved from Vance to the closed office door behind her. "Is Ariana in there?" Vance paused. "She is safe." That was also not my question. The hallway seemed to shrink around them. Grant Vale appeared behind the principal, already irritated by the interruption. "We were handling a serious allegation involving unauthorized access to a vehicle," he said. "Your daughter will have a chance to explain." The woman looked directly at him. "My daughter asked to call me." Vale's jaw tightened. She mentioned contacting you. Yes. But given the situation. The woman interrupted. Your school detained a minor, isolated her from a parent, allowed students to record and circulate accusations, and then delayed contact with her family. Principal Vance's smile vanished. The woman took one step closer. Is that your official position? Carter gave a short laugh from behind them. Wow. She really called her mom to come clean this up. Jasmine shot him a furious look. But Carter continued. Too arrogant to read the room? Maybe she can apologize for her before this gets worse. The woman turned her eyes to Carter. She did not raise her voice. She did not insult him. Somehow, that made it worse. And you are. Carter straightened with practiced confidence. Carter Blake. He expected the name to matter. In Westbridge, it always had. My dad is on the donor board. The woman held his gaze. That is not an answer to the question I will be asking later. Carter's smile thinned. Before he could reply, the front entrance opened again, and Richard Blake strode in. Phone still in hand. Face tight with irritation. Carter. He snapped. What did I tell you about talking? Then he saw the woman. His entire expression changed. The color drained from his face so quickly that even Carter noticed. Richard Blake knew her. Not as Ariana's mother. Not as some angry parent. He knew her from headlines. Legal panels. And rooms where men like him stopped speaking when she entered. Mrs. Monroe, Richard said carefully. The hallway went quiet at the name. Principal Vance glanced at him. Suddenly unsure, Carter looked between his father and the woman. Confused by the fear creeping into Richard's voice. Dad. What's going on? Carter whispered. Richard gripped his son's arm and pulled him back with a force that finally cracked the boy's arrogance. Be quiet. Hey, he's sit. Carter blinked. His father had never spoken to him like that in public. Why? Carter asked. Richard leaned closer. Eyes still fixed on the woman now standing between them and the office where Ariana waited. Because you don't know who you just touched. For the first time that morning, Carter Blake's smile disappeared completely. But the truth about Helena Monroe had not yet been spoken aloud. And everyone in Westbridge Academy was about to learn why even Richard Blake was afraid to say another word. Helena Monroe entered the principal's office without asking permission. The room that had felt powerful a minute earlier suddenly felt small. Ariana was still sitting in the chair across from Principal Vance's desk. Her eyes red, her shoulders stiff, but her chin lifted with the same stubborn dignity Helena knew too well. For the first time that morning, Ariana's face almost broke. Helena did not rush to hug her. Not yet. Not in front of people who had already tried to turn her daughter's pain into evidence. She placed one hand gently on Ariana's shoulder and asked, Did you tell them the truth? Ariana swallowed. I did. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the room. No one listened. Helena's hand tightened once. Just enough to say she had heard everything that mattered. Then Helena turned to the adults. Officer Harkins, she said, reading the name from his badge. State the legal basis for restraining my daughter beside a vehicle registered to her household. Harkins opened his mouth, then closed it. Helena looked to Principal Vance. Explain why a minor student was isolated from her parent after repeatedly requesting contact. Vance's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. Mrs. Monroe? This was a fast-moving situation. Helena did not blink. Fast-moving situations still require judgment. Grant Vale stepped forward. Irritation, masking fear, with respect. What authority do you have to come in here and interrogate school staff? Helena reached into her bag, removed a white business card, and placed it on the desk with 2 fingers. No one moved at first. Then Principal Vance looked down. Officer Harkins looked next. Grant Vale leaned just far enough to read the engraved letters. Justice Helena Monroe, Supreme Court of the United States. The silence that followed was not ordinary silence. It was the sound of every careless decision in the room suddenly becoming dangerous. Harkins stood straighter. Vance's lips parted, but no words came out. Carter stepped back so quickly his shoulder brushed the wall. Richard Blake cleared his throat and tried to recover the room. Justice Monroe. Perhaps this is simply a misunderstanding between children. Helena slowly turned to him. A misunderstanding does not include taking a key from a student's hand. It does not include hiding her phone. It does not include circulating edited video to damage her reputation. And it certainly does not include pressuring a minor to sign a statement that reads like a confession. Carter's face lost its color. Jasmine and Olivia stood just outside the open door, watching the room tilt toward the truth. Ariana looked at her mother. Not rescued yet, but finally no longer alone. Helena shifted her attention to Carter. Her voice stayed calm, which made it even sharper. Now, she said, you will tell the story again from the beginning. This time, do not leave out the part where you took my daughter's key. Carter had spent the morning hiding behind his father, his school, and a camera angle, but under Helena Monroe's star, the lie began to crack. The small conference room felt completely different from Principal Vance's office. This was no longer a place where Ariana Reed could be isolated, pressured, or talked over. A large screen had been turned on at the front of the room, and every person who had played a role in the accusation was now sitting where they could not easily escape the facts. Justice Helena Monroe sat beside her daughter, calm as ever. Ariana remained quiet, but for the first time all day, she was no longer alone. Across the table sat Carter Blake and his father, Richard Blake, Principal Vance, Grandval, and Officer Harkins occupied the opposite side, each looking far less confident than they had an hour earlier. Jasmine stood near Olivia Hart, who still looked terrified. Carter noticed it immediately. He pointed toward Olivia's phone and scoffed. Whatever she thinks she recorded doesn't prove anything. She misunderstood what she saw. Olivia lowered her eyes. The fear Carter had spent years creating was still there. But Jasmine gently touched her shoulder. You don't have to be afraid anymore, she whispered. Helena turned toward Olivia, her voice calm and reassuring. Olivia? The truth does not need to shout. It only needs someone willing to protect it. The room fell silent. Olivia swallowed hard, then looked directly at Carter for the first time since entering the room. You deleted the video from my phone, she said. Carter immediately shrugged. Because it was misleading. Olivia took a shaky breath. No, it wasn't. Then she revealed the one thing Carter had never considered. My phone automatically backs everything up to the cloud. Carter froze. For a fraction of a second, his expression completely collapsed. Richard Blake slowly turned toward his son. Principal Vance stopped moving. Even Officer Harkins seemed to understand exactly what that meant. The video Carter thought he had destroyed was still alive. Helena simply nodded. Then let's watch it. The screen lit up. At first, nobody spoke. The footage was clear, steady, and impossible to argue with. Ariana appeared beside the black sedan, calmly holding her key. Then Carter walked into frame. Everyone watched him grab the key directly from Ariana's hand. Mason laughed as Carter tossed it away. The recording continued. Brooke deliberately changed her camera angle. Tyler called security, while Carter began building the accusation piece by piece. The crowd grew. The lies multiplied. Then came the moment that shattered the entire story. The video showed Carter kicking Ariana's phone beneath the car after she tried to call her mother. There was no ambiguity, no misunderstanding, no missing context. Every major claim Carter had made throughout the day collapsed in less than 3 minutes of footage. The room sat in complete silence as the video ended. Officer Harkins cleared his throat first. I acted based on the information available at the time. Helena immediately looked at him. Then explain why you never checked the vehicle registration. Harkins said nothing. Explain why you never asked who owned the car. Silence. Explain why you prevented a minor from contacting her parent. Harkins opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time all day, he had no explanation that sounded reasonable, even to himself. Principal Vance stared at the table. Grant Vale avoided eye contact completely. Carter looked trapped. The evidence that had nearly disappeared had returned and destroyed every version of the story that protected him. No one spoke for several long seconds. Then Helena reached for her tablet. Her expression remained composed, but there was something colder in her eyes now. Something that suggested this meeting was far from over. She opened a document and slowly slid the screen across the table. Interesting, she said, because this doesn't appear to be the first complaint involving Carter Blake. Richard Blake's face immediately tightened. Carter looked confused. Principal Vance suddenly looked nervous. Helena tapped the screen once more and raised her eyes toward the room. In fact, she said quietly, I think we're about to discover that today's incident was only the beginning. The video had proven Ariana innocent, but the files Helena was holding threatened to expose something far larger, a school that had spent years protecting the wrong student. The emergency boardroom at Westbridge Academy filled faster than Principal Vance wanted. Teachers stood near the walls. A few students who had been called in as witnesses sat with their hands folded, afraid to speak, until someone powerful finally made it safe. Carter Blake sat beside his father. No longer smiling, Richard Blake kept whispering to him. But every word sounded less like comfort and more like panic. At the front of the room, Helena Monroe placed her tablet on the table and opened a file that had nothing to do with the black sedan. This did not begin in the parking lot, she said. It only became visible there. Names appeared on the screen. Dates, incident reports, complaints marked as misunderstanding, insuffisyente évidence, or student conflict. One report described a boy accused of stealing an expensive watch after Carter had hidden it in his backpack. Another described a student filmed in a locker room and mocked online. A third described a girl threatened into silence after she tried to report harassment. Ariana looked at the list, then at Carter. This was not a one-day lie. It was a pattern. Richard Blake slammed his hand on the table. This is an abuse of power. He snapped. You are using your position to target my son. Helena did not raise her voice. No. Mr. Blake, I am using records, video, witnesses, and your son's own behavior. Richard's face darkened. You don't know what kind of damage you're doing. Helena looked at him coldly. I know exactly what damage silence has already done. A former history teacher stepped forward, his voice shaking. I reported Carter twice last year. He said, I was told to leave it alone because the Blake family had just funded the new library wing. Principal Vance went rigid. Grant Vale stared at the table. Then a student near the back began crying and admitted Carter had once edited a video to make her look like she had cheated on an exam. Everyone believed him, she whispered. And the school told me not to make it worse. Richard stood, furious. Then Westbridge can forget every dollar my family promised. A board representative at the end of the table finally spoke. Mr. Blake, that is no longer the school's biggest concern. We have already received notice that this matter is being referred to the State Education Authority and Internal Affairs regarding Officer Harkins' conduct. Harkins looked up sharply, his face draining. For the first time, Carter seemed to understand that suspension was not the only word waiting for him. Officer Harkins' phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then slowly turned toward Carter. Carter Blake? He said, voice tight. You need to remain here and speak with the investigator. The room went still. Money, reputation, and laughter had protected Carter for years. But now, none of them could stand between him and the truth. The auditorium at Westbridge Academy was silent, in a way Ariana had never heard before. It was not the silence of respect. Not yet. It was the silence of students, parents, and teachers realizing they had watched a lie spread and done nothing to stop it. Ariana stood at the front of the room beside Justice Helena Monroe, facing the same school that had judged her from a phone screen. Carter Blake sat near the first row with his father, his shoulders low, his face empty of the confidence he had worn in the parking lot. Principal Vance sat behind the board table, pale and rigid. Grant Vale avoided every eye in the room. Officer Harkin stood near the side wall, no longer looking like the man in control. When Ariana was invited to speak, she did not cry. She did not yell. She simply stepped to the microphone and told the truth. She spoke about standing beside her own family's car and being treated like she had stolen it. She described Carter taking her key, Brooks' edited video, Officer Harkins forcing her hands onto the hood, and the principal's office, where she had been pressured to sign a statement that turned a lie into her confession. The worst part, Ariana said, her voice steady, was not that Carter accused me. It was how quickly everyone decided he sounded more believable than I did. Olivia Hart came next, trembling but brave. She testified that she had recorded Carter stealing the key and that he later tried to delete the video. Jasmine confirmed that Carter threatened Olivia and tried to silence anyone who defended Ariana. Then other students stood up. On everyone, they told stories of Carter's edited videos, false accusations, and quiet threats. The mood in the auditorium shifted. Students who had laughed at Ariana now stared at the floor. Parents whispered angrily. The board members took notes with grim faces. Finally, the decision was read. Carter Blake was suspended indefinitely, and his case would be referred to the proper authorities. Principal Vance was suspended pending investigation. Grant Vale was placed on administrative leave. Officer Harkin's conduct was referred to internal affairs. Richard Blake shot to his feet, furious, but no one turned toward him with fear anymore. His money had lost its voice. As Ariana stepped down from the stage, she passed Carter. He looked up, smaller than she had ever seen him. I didn't think it would turn into this. He moodled. Ariana stopped for 1 second. That's because you never thought I was a person. Then she walked away. Justice had been spoken, but Ariana still had one decision left: return to the place that humiliated her, or leave it behind forever. A few days later, the black sedan returned to the front gate of Westbridge Academy. It stopped in the same place where the lie had begun, beside the same curb, under the same morning light. But everything felt different now. No one laughed. No one lifted a phone. No one whispered that Ariana Reed did not belong near that car. Students who had once crowded around to watch her humiliation now quietly stepped aside as she opened the door and got out. Ariana stood there for a moment, one hand resting on the car, looking at the school that had tried to turn her into a criminal before asking a single honest question. Justice Helena Monroe stepped out beside her. She did not give a speech. She did not glare at the students. She simply stood near her daughter, calm and proud, letting Ariana decide how much space Westbridge would still have in her life. At the entrance, Jasmine Cole and Olivia Hart were waiting. Olivia looked nervous, her hands folded tightly in front of her. Ariana, she said softly. I'm sorry, I was scared at first. Ariana looked at her for a long moment, then shook her head. You were scared, but you still chose the truth. That matters more. Olivia's eyes filled with relief. Jasmine smiled. And for the first time since the incident, the front steps of Westbridge felt less like a courtroom and more like a place where Ariana could breathe. The school had already begun changing. New policies required parent contact before any serious accusation against a student moved forward. Edited videos could no longer be treated as evidence without review. Old bullying complaints were being reopened. Teachers who had stayed silent were being questioned. Students who once believed Carter's version of everything were now learning what it cost to laugh before listening. Across the parking lot, Carter Blake appeared briefly beside his father. He was not wearing the arrogant jacket he used to parade around in. He did not smirk. He did not point. He only looked at Ariana from a distance, then lowered his eyes. Ariana did not walk toward him. She did not need revenge. The truth had already done what anger never could. She turned back to the black sedan and opened the door. Before getting in, she looked once more at Westbridge Academy. This time, no one dared ask whether the car was hers. And in that silence, the whole school understood. They had not just accused the wrong girl. They had awakened a truth strong enough to bring down everything built to hide the lie. And that brings us to the end of Ariana Reed's story. What began as a cruel accusation beside a black sedan became something much bigger. A lesson about how quickly people can judge, how dangerous a lie can become when powerful people protect it, and how important it is to stand by the truth, even when you're standing alone. Ariana never won because of anger, revenge, or status. She won because she refused to surrender the truth, even when no one wanted to hear it. In the end, the people who laughed the loudest were forced to face the consequences of their own actions, while those who chose courage over fear helped bring justice into the light. Now we want to hear from you. If you had been standing in that parking lot on the first day, would you have spoken up for Ariana? Or would you have stayed silent like everyone else? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and believe more people should hear messages like this, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of justice and unforgettable endings. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next